The dog showed up every morning like clockwork. Rain or shine, there he was, sitting silently near the school gate, tail still, eyes scanning every face that passed. He never barked, never begged, never moved. Just watched. At first, the children were amused. They called him Lucky, tossed him scraps, patted his head on the way in. But he didn't wag his tail. He wasn't there for attention. He was waiting for something or someone. Teachers thought he belonged to a neighbor. The principal considered calling animal control, but he never caused trouble. He just sat and watched. Then, one cold Thursday morning, Lucky did something he had never done before. He stood up, locked eyes with a little girl in a red coat, and barked. Loud, urgent, refusing to stop. And in the chaos that followed, everything changed. The school was a quiet, one-story building nestled at the edge of a small town. Every morning, parents lined up their cars along the curb, kids in puffy jackets and backpacks hurrying to beat the first bell. Among the crowd, unnoticed at first, sat a thin, scruffy stray. His fur was matted in places, his ribs faintly visible beneath the dirt. But his eyes, those deep, alert eyes, missed nothing. He started showing up a month ago, always at the same spot near the iron gate. The janitor tried chasing him off, but the dog would return the next day, same time, same place. Eventually, people stopped trying. He wasn't hurting anyone. He just watched. The children named him Lucky. Some brought him bits of sandwich or crusts of toast. He accepted them politely, but never wagged his tail. His gaze remained fixed on the doors of the school, as if expecting someone to walk out. He never followed anyone home, never played, never barked, until the day he stood up, stiff and focused, and locked his eyes on a single child among dozens. A girl in a red coat, her small hand gripping the strap of her backpack. And that's when he barked for the first time. The bark startled everyone. Teachers stepped out of classrooms, students turned to look, and the usual morning chatter fell into a hush. Lucky stood rigid near the gate, barking in short, sharp bursts. His eyes never left the little girl in the red coat. She froze. Her name was Emma, 7 years old, quiet, polite, a little shy, with long dark hair and big brown eyes that rarely met anyone else's. She lived nearby and walked to school every day with her older brother. That morning, however, she had walked alone. The principal, Mr. Haywood, gently stepped forward and called out, "It's okay, kids. Just stay back." Lucky didn't budge. He wasn't barking at anyone else, just Emma. Eventually, a staff member led her inside, and Lucky quieted. But he didn't leave. He sat back down, eyes still fixed on the school door, tense and watchful. Word spread quickly. Some thought the dog might know Emma, maybe a lost pet or a dog from her neighborhood. But Emma said she'd never seen him before. "He's not mine," she whispered when her teacher asked. The school counselor called her parents. Her mother, visibly shaken, confirmed they didn't own a dog. They had never owned a pet. She had no idea why the stray would act like that. The next day, Lucky was back. Same time, same spot. But this time, as Emma approached the gate, he stood and began to whine, low, almost pleading. The school installed a temporary security camera near the entrance. Maybe someone had trained the dog to do this. Maybe it was a prank. But the footage showed nothing suspicious. Just Lucky arriving before dawn, sitting quietly, then barking and pacing as soon as Emma came into view. By the end of the week, Emma had become withdrawn. She sat quietly at lunch, stared out the window during lessons, flinched at sudden noises. Her teacher, Mrs. Callahan, gently asked, "Sweetheart, is something wrong at home?" Emma hesitated. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to her folded hands. "No," she said softly. "Nothing's wrong." But outside, Lucky began to bark again, loud, sharp, and focused. Something was wrong. They just couldn't see it yet. Emma's mother, Dana, was at her breaking point. By the third week, she was barely sleeping. Every day, she walked her daughter to school, and every day, the dog was there, sitting, watching, barking when Emma passed through the gate. The school staff had tried everything: local shelters, animal control, even social media posts. But Lucky never let anyone catch him. He'd retreat just far enough to avoid their reach, then return as soon as they were gone. "I don't understand," Dana whispered one night, wiping her face at the kitchen table. Why her? Why only her? Her husband, Tom, paced the room with clenched fists. Maybe he's dangerous. What if he bites her? What if something's off in his head? Dana looked toward Emma's room, where the little girl lay curled under her blanket. She'd become quieter lately, more distant. Some nights she'd wake up crying, but never said why. He doesn't seem dangerous, Dana murmured. He seems desperate. Emma had stopped talking about the dog altogether. When asked, she simply said, he just watches. Tom contacted animal control again. Next time he shows up, he said, they need to take him away. But when Emma overheard that, she began to cry quietly in the hallway, her shoulders trembling. Please don't hurt him, she whispered. He's just trying to help. Dana knelt beside her, heart aching. Help with what, baby? Emma didn't answer. She just stared at the wall, eyes distant, and hugged her knees to her chest. And outside, under the orange glow of the street lamp, Lucky lay on the grass by the gate, silent now, but watching. Always watching. It happened on a Thursday. The school day had ended early because of a sudden snowstorm. Emma hadn't wanted to walk home. She lingered in the hallway, dragging her feet, saying her boots felt weird. But eventually, her mother coaxed her in her coat, and they stepped out into the freezing wind. Lucky wasn't there. For the first time in weeks, his usual spot by the gate was empty. Emma looked around nervously. Where is he? She asked, her voice small. Dana tried to smile. Maybe he finally found his way home. But Emma didn't smile back. She walked faster. They turned onto their street, ice crunching beneath their boots. Dana struggled to unlock the front door with gloved fingers. As soon as it opened, Emma hesitated at the threshold. Then, from behind them, came a bark. Dana turned. Lucky was running up the sidewalk, soaked and panting. He skidded to a stop in front of the door and barked again, loud, insistent, staring directly at Emma. Before Dana could speak, Emma's expression shifted. Her body stiffened. Then she whispered, he doesn't want me to go inside. Dana blinked. What? But Lucky barked again, then lunged forward. Not at Emma, but toward the door. He blocked it, pressing his body against the frame. His fur stood on end. He growled deep and low, a sound they had never heard from him before. That's when Dana smelled it. Gas. She pulled Emma back, just as Lucky started barking uncontrollably. Dana dropped to her knees, heart racing, and scooped her daughter into her arms. A neighbor ran over, alarmed by the noise. Dana screamed, call 911. I think there's a gas leak. Within minutes, emergency crews arrived. They confirmed a dangerous buildup of gas inside the house. A faulty line beneath the stove had cracked. One spark, one light switch, and the house could have gone up in flames. Lucky paced restlessly near the curb, whining now, tail low. Emma knelt down beside him and wrapped her arms around his neck. For the first time, he leaned into her. She whispered something no one else heard. But Lucky's tail wagged just once, because he knew she understood. The fire chief confirmed what they feared. The gas line had been leaking slowly for days, seeping through the house undetected. It was nearly impossible to smell in the cold winter air, especially when mixed with the faint aroma of heating oil and snow-dampened furniture. It's a miracle you didn't go inside, he told Dana, still shaking from the shock. A single spark would have ignited the whole place. You were seconds away from disaster. Dana sat in the back of the ambulance with Emma wrapped tightly in her arms. They were both wrapped in thick red blankets. The paramedics had checked them for exposure, and while they were safe, the emotional weight hung heavy. The gas leak had gone unnoticed by their detectors. The aging sensor in the kitchen had failed long ago, something they had meant to replace, but never got around to. It wasn't the equipment that saved them. It was Lucky. He had smelled it, sensed the danger long before anyone else. That was why he had followed Emma, why he waited outside the school every day, why he barked, growled, and stood between them and the front door. He wasn't just watching her. He was warning her. In the days that followed, their home remained closed off for repairs and decontamination. They stayed with Dana's sister across town. Emma rarely spoke, but when she did, it was about Lucky. He knew, she told her aunt one morning. He was trying to tell us. Nobody listened until it almost happened. The news traveled fast. A stray dog saving a family from a deadly gas leak made the local papers, then the evening news. People want to know where he'd come from, how he knew, why he'd chosen Emma. But there were no easy answers. Lucky couldn't explain. He simply sat beside Emma now, resting his head on her lap, his job finally understood. When an officer from Animal Control arrived the next day with a leash and clipboard, Dana stepped in front of the door. "He's not a stray," she said. Her voice didn't waver. "He's family." Lucky wagged his tail just once and gently licked the back of Emma's hand. He had known something was wrong all along. And now, so did they. They didn't go back to the house for a while. Even after the gas line was repaired and the smell was gone, something about it felt different, like stepping back into a place that had once nearly taken everything. But Lucky went with them every time they visited. He would sniff the air, cautiously inspect each room, and only when he was satisfied would he sit down near Emma's feet and relax. He had become more than a dog, more than a stray who once sat by the school gate in the snow. He had become something else entirely. He had become her guardian. Emma's personality began to return. Slowly, she smiled more. She started laughing again. At school, she told her classmates about Lucky, how he had warned her, how he had barked until someone listened. They didn't tease her. They listened, because even kids understood when something was real. Dana watched them from the doorway one afternoon. Emma sitting cross-legged on the rug, reading aloud from a picture book. Lucky lay beside her, his head resting gently on her lap, eyes half closed but ears perked, as if still listening for danger. Tears welled up in Dana's eyes. "He never left her," she whispered to Tom that evening. From the moment he saw her, he knew. Tom nodded. She was never alone. The town officially registered Lucky as their pet a week later. The adoption form listed his name as Lucky Callahan, though Emma still called him Hero when no one else was around. Neighbors dropped by with treats, toys, even hand-knit sweaters. A local bakery sent a custom dog biscuit that said "Thank you, Lucky." And the mayor wrote a letter of recognition, calling him a symbol of loyalty and instinct, something no machine or human could replicate. But to Emma, he wasn't a symbol. He was family. She held him tight each night, tucked under blankets, one small hand always resting on his back. "You saved me," she whispered once, eyes half closed with sleep. Lucky didn't move. He didn't have to, because he had already said everything he needed to say, with a bark that changed everything. Sometimes, the greatest heroes don't burst through doors or shout to be heard. Sometimes they wait quietly, watch patiently, bark only when it matters most. Lucky wasn't trained to save lives. He wasn't raised in a loving home, fed from a silver bowl, or tucked into a soft bed each night. He came from the streets, alone, silent, unnoticed. But when it counted, he showed up, again and again. Not for food, not for shelter, but for a little girl in a red coat. He watched her when no one else noticed. He barked when no one else listened. And in doing so, he saved more than just her life. He gave her family a future they didn't know was slipping away. That's the thing about dogs. They don't need to be taught how to love. They just do, fiercely, silently, unconditionally. So the next time you see a stray or hear a dog bark without reason, remember, sometimes they see what we cannot. Sometimes they feel what we overlook. And sometimes they're not just dogs. They're angels on four legs. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories of loyalty, love, and life-saving pets. Because heroes come in all shapes, and some wear fur.